welcome to the show and welcome to 2021. The Tech Leaders Podcast gets off to a flying start with an amazing guest. Sina Yamani is the CEO and founder of Yoello, who are a Cardiff-based fintech who have absolutely tore it up in 2020 and expect to replicate that in 2021. Sina moved to the UK aged 8, unable to speak English. He grew up in Gloucestershire, ended up going to Cardiff University, but then dropped out of uni in his third year to the dismay of his mum. But it was for good reason. He set up Yoello and his timing was impeccable. His product offering was very well suited to the social distance regulations. So we unpack this. We unpack his journey from going from a bedroom startup to a fully fledged fintech. We talk about attracting investors and his journey, of attracting the right investors and building an advisory network, and so much more. We also talk about his thoughts on the education system, Bitcoin, and lots of other things. He's a great guest, an amazing story. I think you'll love this one. It's Sina Yamani. Sina Yamani. I'm so glad that we pinned this down. I've been looking forward to it. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
No problem at all. I think it's been a crazy year for everybody in 2020, but especially yourself. What's happening at Yoello right now? How's business?
Business is very good. We were just at the right place at the right time. All the products we've been working on for the last couple of years, all the ideas, it just fell into place and people needed it.
Well, when we first met, I think I accused you of inventing COVID yourself, didn't I?
Yeah, there's been a couple of accusations like that. It has played in our favour a little bit because of all the social distancing requirements. Has had a general push towards a digital sector for everyone. So as we're a completely digital platform for payments, our services were required by businesses. So.
Absolutely. Well, I've been astounded by the level of growth that you've achieved in such a short space of time. So I'm really looking forward to unpacking that. But first of all, let's just find out a little bit more about you, okay? That's what this show is all about. I'm really, keen to unpack your career, how you got to this point. So give us a little intro to yourself, a little bit of a broad overview from school days, okay? Entrepreneur days, okay? Yeah. Right through to today.
Okay. So my background was I'm Persian, and I came to the UK to Cheltenham when I was around 8 years old, and just went to school. Didn't know any English at all, but I think I knew like a couple of words like apple and ball, and that was about it.
Wow.
You
so
learn
8 years old. You said you moved over. Okay.
Yeah. But you learn very quickly. At that age, you're like a sponge, aren't you? So I quickly picked it up, and I guess. Some people everyone's different, right? And for me, I don't know, just entrepreneurism or just the concept of it, it's just ingrained in me. I was always a problem solver, and I could always kind of pick things out and think that they could be done differently, more efficiently, or it could be like a business idea or something like that. And I don't know what it is about me, or if it was the way I was raised, but I was always very interested in money. For some reason, or just success in general. Always wanted to just do good or do cool things. Mm-hmm. So
through technology, though, yeah.
Yeah, through technology mainly. I'm a very curious person. I was always the kind of person that took things apart, trying to understand how it works. Super interested in all the sciences. So I studied biology, chemistry, physics, and computer science at A levels.
Right.
So just to give you an understanding of like. A bit of a nerd in terms of from that perspective.
Just to rewind back to something you said there, why did your family move to the UK then?
My dad got a professorship here, so he was teaching at the university, and he came here on his own, and then for about a year or two, and then I'm not sure exactly why, but I ended up coming here with my mum.
Right.
I think it was just because.
So he was over earlier. Yourself and your mum joined him 8 years. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. And I think it was the opportunities here are much better, and it was my mum's dream of me to kind of go to university here and just get just a good life, I guess.
Yeah.
And so yes, we moved here, went to school, and I guess that was so. I always had a computer from a very young age, so probably around when we first got here, basically. So around 9, 10, had a computer, and I was very curious as to how it all worked. I knew in and out way more than my dad. It was my dad's computer, but I was way better than my dad at it. And just played around with it. Internet came, DSL days. The crazy sounds when you connect to the internet.
Yeah, dial-up.
Dial-up used to connect. It was to disconnect the telephone.
The phone downstairs. Good
So
God.
yeah, and it was pay per minute, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And we weren't particularly well off or anything like that. So I literally had to sneak on and like make a whole lot of noise to cover up the dial-up, and then just do whatever I was doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I was getting up to. I can't remember specifically, just on the internet, but just exploring and finding out how things worked, and started making money at a very young age. One of the first things I did was quite illegal, actually, but I ended up like phishing stuff. I was like 12, 13. And I ended up phishing some passwords for this platform that was like the gold account. Was basically it was like £40 a month to use the platform to get a gold subscription. And the platform, when you had that account, it meant that you could do anything on as many computers as you wanted. It was like an unlimited account. So it didn't really harm anyone doing it this way, but I ended up somehow getting like thousands of passwords. Using passwords. And I went on my dad's.
Money for old rope then, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Were you coding sort of at this point then?
Yeah, I wouldn't really call it coding per se. It was more like copy and pasting and figuring stuff out.
Yeah, of course. Okay.
But yeah, like a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
But and then I got those accounts, and I went on my dad's eBay account, put them all on there. And I was very specific about what it was. I was like, this is one of those gold accounts. Instead of £40 a month, it was like £10 for like lifetime.
Yeah.
And I specified in the description, I was like, this is not my account. Don't change the password or you'll lose the account. Ended up selling like thousands of these, and they would all go into my dad's PayPal account, and literally I didn't even need money. I was like 13, and then eventually, I don't know. I think there was like some disputes a couple of months later. Either the accounts got the real owner stopped paying for the subscription.
Did your dad know the extent of what you were doing?
Not at this point. No, he had no idea. And then the accounts got disputed. Either they changed the password or they stopped paying for the subscription. So PayPal calls my dad. He's like, you've got quite a significant dispute rate here. It was like 10% or something like that. And then my dad comes. He's like, what's going on? Why is there like 15k in my PayPal? Like, I was completely confused. I explained to him what I was doing, and he was quite angry at me. He was angry, but I can tell he was proud a little bit. Yeah. So just variety of random things growing up. Just got involved in so many different projects. Started so many different things. Nothing real. It was always like playing around and making some money here and there.
Yeah, definitely.
But I always had it in my blood as to like a creator, I guess. The creative type.
So you strike me as someone who's a little bit, how can I put it? You think an out of the box thinker, or someone who's not prepared to take risks. Yeah, you were clearly taking a risk there. You were doing something which was a little bit, not above board, so to speak. You kind of had that's kind of the trait of an entrepreneur, though, right? Someone who's going to take chances to get what they want.
Yeah, I've definitely taken a lot of chances and risks to get here. I like to think that they're data driven and calculated chances.
Calculated, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure we'll see as things unravel. But and then. I got involved with various different projects, got quite early into Bitcoin.
Don't get me started on Bitcoin. I can talk about that all day. Yeah. That will just hijack the entire interview. But so you were in early. So what year are we talking?
This was in 2012 or 13.
Wow, that is early.
But it wasn't the success that I wish it was. So I got in. Bitcoin was like £4. It was like £4.
Dear.
I bought like a few hundred of them. And because it was just cool, and that's why
I feel wow. Do you realise how much that'd be worth? Now?
You're telling me.
Bloody hell.
And then like a few, I don't know how long went by, but then I sold them for like £30 each, and I was like, yeah.
Oh my
profit.
God! Yeah, well, I mean, you were chuffed at the time, but you're kicking yourself now.
Made like 900%, and then I felt good about it. And then time went by, and I was still young. I was like, I don't know, 14, 15. I had no idea about couldn't really see the potential of what it was going to be.
Well, the fact you worked out how to buy Bitcoin at that age is because in those days, was it Mt. Gox or something like that? Was probably the only
exactly
exchange.
what I used. So I actually, so obviously Mt. Gox got, I don't know if you know about it, got hacked.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I reckon I still had a couple of Bitcoins on there.
Do you know what? I've only just realised this, Sina, okay? But I thought I met you for the first time not too long ago. But actually, that's not true. I met you ages ago. I was chairing a Bitcoin debate in the Millennium Centre about 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And you were in there.
Right.
I think remember I was chairing it and a big argument broke out.
Yeah.
not my finest hour of chairmanship, but do you remember the incident I'm talking about?
I remember.
No, so I remember you from that event. So yeah, I can remember you you were involved in crypto. I remember you were quite vocal about your opinions in that particular session. Not as much as the other people who were there though. Yeah. So talk to me about crypto very quickly then. So you obviously had that experience. Well, what attracted you to Bitcoin and what attracted you to crypto, to cryptocurrencies at that point?
I was just interested by it. It was like a peculiar concept. I clearly wasn't that interested because I saw it. But it's interesting. I'm more interested in it now than I was when I was younger because now I understand.
You understand it better, yeah. Cool.
Not only from a financial perspective, as kind of like a store of wealth or currency for transactions, but from a technology perspective, it's amazing how it works. The distributed network
100%.
and just how the whole system kind of operates across the world in consensus is amazing, and I can't even begin to say that I understand the intricacies of how it actually works.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Although I've looked into it, the mathematics that goes behind it is unbelievable.
Yeah,
and it's very impressive. Whoever or the group that put it together.
The group? You think it's a group?
I mean, there's conspiracy theories, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's a guy. He's actually come to Cardiff a couple of times. He says he is one of the. He says he's Satoshi.
Oh, Craig Wright.
Wright.
I went to see him in the hotel down the bay before. I don't think he is Satoshi.
Probably met there as well then.
Oh, you were there as well?
There,
yeah. Good God, it's all coming out now. Was that?
N-Chain was.
Yeah.
It was sponsored by N-Chain or something.
Yeah, I know Steve, the Bitcoin Wales guy. I met you at Bitcoin Wales events as well.
Steve's the guy that was very vocal as well.
Yeah. Always. I love Steve to bits. He's a great guy. He's very passionate about Bitcoin. But yeah, I think. But Craig Wright speaks well. I don't think hardcore people within Bitcoin really believe he's Satoshi though. I think that.
Well, I mean, he'd have to be very wealthy to be Satoshi.
Well, I think Satoshi is probably one of the richest men in the world, isn't he? On the current price and the amount of coins that he owns, whoever he is. I've heard a big case. There's a guy from Exeter. Do you know that one?
No.
A guy called Adam Back.
No.
There's a lot of people think it's him. A lot of people think it's Hal Finney. I've heard of him. So yeah, the mystery continues. But who cares? It's a work of art, I think.
Yeah. I don't know what. Yeah, Bitcoin is definitely just blockchain is a work of art.
Yes,
and it'd be very interesting to see what the result will be. There are, it's an amazing concept, but then I would love to think it could replace, the fiat structure.
Yes,
but it's who knows? There's a lot. There's pros and cons to both sides.
Yeah, of course.
So
not wanting to go down that rabbit hole too much, but this is definitely a conversation we'll continue at some point offline. Yeah. But going back to yourself, so you obviously, you were talking about Bitcoin, you had that thing, commence that. Talk us through your journey to where you are now, get back on track on that one.
Yeah, so I, just speed up a few years, I guess the next milestone, did my A-levels, went to university, studied computer science at uni. I was a very good software engineer at that point. I got to uni and I knew everything already. The first couple of years just flew by because I understood it all. And then
what did you understand? Sorry.
Everything they were teaching me.
Yeah, so but what was it? What subject are you talking about?
Computer science. So all the modules were like, object-oriented programming and like machine learning and that kind of stuff.
You felt you were picking it up really quickly. It felt very natural to you, did it?
Yeah, I guess the core. Well, there's a lot of people that started it with no knowledge at all. They didn't really have any understanding. So I guess they had to tailor the whole subject to getting everyone up to scratch. Whereas I already had like 3-4 years experience on my own.
Yeah.
And so I kind of understood all of it. So my attendance was like literally like 3-4%. They emailed me loads saying, "Are you okay? You know, why are you not coming in?"
And you were excelling.
I was on a first the whole way
Wow.
through, and then third year came, and I dropped out. I had this idea. I had a number of ideas, but I wanted to go. I thought I was ready to basically go full in, and start something. So I picked, what is essentially Yoello now, and I decided to just take the leap of faith. Didn't tell my mum, of course. Like I said, it was my mum's dream for me to come to university.
Yeah.
And
what uni were you sort of planning on? What uni were you in then?
Cardiff University.
You were in Cardiff. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you left after during your first year, or
In the third year.
Oh, the third. Wow. So you left so close to the finishing line. Why did you do that?
It was a. I guess half of it was also I wanted to. So what do you get when you graduate university? You get a certificate. You get a degree, and then what does that get you? And that,
Nothing.
Well, I mean, it gets the majority of people.
Makes your parents proud.
It makes your parents proud.
That's
for
pretty much
sure.
it.
But it gets the majority of people a really nice job. And but it's much more competitive now than it was, say, 10 years ago. 10, 20 years ago, 10% of the people might have a degree. I don't know what the numbers are now, but it's a lot more, maybe like 50%.
Yeah.
And that wasn't what I was interested in. I always wanted to do my own thing. So, and I knew the degree would never do that. So I didn't want to have any backup plans. I wanted to cut all the bridges and just get stuck in. So I took that leap of faith, didn't tell mum. And it's a crazy journey into starting a business. So obviously it's quite time consuming, especially when you have no idea what you're doing at all, because you got to just figure it out. So quite a while went by, probably.
So what specific timestamp are we looking at here? When did you actually start Yoello? Was this
3 years ago?
So 2017.
Yeah.
Just before the end of the academic year. So we're talking about Feb.
Yeah, I don't know about months, but around about 3 years ago.
Okay, brilliant.
And then the first a few months goes by, probably like 6 months, and then my mum's like, "Hey, when's the graduation?"
Oh, God.
So I had to break the news to her, and
that was an awkward conversation.
Yeah, she was very, very sad. You're making a mistake. Go back to uni. It's tough. You won't make it. All that kind of stuff. But I went on anyway, and it's the toughest part is you can't really explain to her. She had no idea what I was trying to do, or
of course,
she barely use a phone, an iPhone, let alone understand the intricacies of like open banking and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely.
I was trying to explain to her, and then I guess the first milestone was getting funding. That was the first major thing, because everything up until that point, is just cool bits that you're doing, but it's first
just
actual milestone, it's conceptual, and because there's a lot of moving pieces in what we've got now in Yoello, and I definitely couldn't do them without either being rich myself or a lot more time.
What did you actually have at that point in terms of a product?
There was some MVPs, so I did prototype some stuff. I did put actually a considerable amount of money into actually building it.
So you had a bit of savings aside yourself.
Yeah, like all the stupid stuff I did to make money growing up.
Of course, yeah.
And then, so I probably put in, I don't know, 10,000-20,000 in, and so built some prototypes, and that was a nice pitch deck and just a good dream, I guess, a good story.
Yeah.
Went and met, I don't know how many people, like hundreds of people. Went to everything I could, spoke to anyone that would listen to me, and I guess one of the key things that I did was actually build a board around me, like an advisory network, because I knew I didn't know anything, and there was a lot that I needed to kind of either be taught or helped with. So I found a lot of amazing people that helped me along the way, and some of them joined me into the company as board members, and quite notable people, to be honest, for where the company was, especially at that point. Like we've got the previous CEO of Santander as our chairman. Had the executives from UBS.
Who was the first one? Who was the guy who said, "This, you've got something here. I believe in you, Sina. I'm going to help you"?
The first board member, or
just in general, in terms of who was the first person who believed in you on this journey that led to
I guess the first person who really believed was the first investor. Yeah, there's two different parts. Like, there was people that came along the way.
Yeah.
There were some people that kind of came to help with the startup. A few of my friends from uni, but there's a lot of work that goes into this. And we were, in uni, and I guess the time that had to be, kind of invested into this, it wasn't up to scratch for them. So they kind of dropped out of it, and it was just me again. But from an investor perspective, it was actually who is now our accountant. It was just some guy that I was introduced to by some mutual friends, and we just became friends. And he's got his own accountancy practice, and he understood what I was trying to do, and he believed. So he put the first investment in, and that investment was pivotal because it was kind of, I don't know what happened from that point, but it was like, I pushed the snowball down the hill, and it just started adding up from there.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what did your product look like at that? So what were you trying to, let me think of a better way of positioning this. What problem were you trying to solve at that point?
So the prototype that we had then, I guess the problem is the way payments currently work. And the underlying problem is there's a lot of different parties in the mix. There's like 6 different intermediaries in every single payment that you ever make, whether it's online or in store. It goes through the card schemes, and the end merchant loses 2 to 3% of the transaction fee, which is quite a lot of money when you think about it.
Definitely.
And we were trying to solve that, and there was a variety of different ways you could do it. That's why I got so inherently interested in cryptocurrencies, because that is one mechanism. Although I who knows if that will ever take off from that perspective and have just a general consumer sentiment in terms of everyone using it. The other way is through banks. Now, at the moment, Visa and MasterCard were like the only ones that could really connect to banks. They were the only ones that had the network. So you connect to the banks, you can move money between them, between accounts, and then you can connect to merchants, so businesses that want to receive funds, and so you can facilitate the transaction to them and then to customers. And that was, what we use right now is cards.
But Visa, MasterCard, I understand what you mean. Traditional sort of cards, traditional cards, credit card type.
Yeah, it's like it's their own networks.
Yeah, certainly. Okay.
So, but then if you look at your online banking, you've got things like faster payments, right? That's a network run by Vocalink, and
I know. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the main technologies that we're using now.
Right.
Because when you go on your bank account and you put in a sort code, account number, description, the amount, that's almost instant, that payment. So it goes straight away.
So you were trying to solve the problem of improving merchants' margins by paying less to the banks, and then
it's just the whole network.
Removing
margins,
the middlemen, essentially.
Exactly, removing the middlemen. So it's margins and the settlement time, because whilst there's also 2 to 3%, it's also 3 to 4 working days to receive the funds as well. So it's a cash flow problem for businesses, and then there was also a problem of microtransactions. So the most transactions work on a model called interchange plus, and that means that there's it's not a fixed rate. It's not like just 3%. It's like 1.5% plus 5, 10, 20p per transaction.
Yeah.
And obviously that fixed element of it, the pennies, the lower down you go in terms of a transaction value, the higher that fixed element is as a percentage of the overall amount.
Right.
So if you've got, the transaction fee is 1% plus 10p on every payment, and you want to process a £1 transaction for, a bottle of water, then the transaction fee is 11%.
Yeah, which wipes out the entire profit. Probably.
Yeah. So and that's why there's loads of laws that have come out of that. So corner shops, local smaller places,
because cash is just not practical going forward, really, for a number of reasons.
Yeah, and that's completely shifted. I think the stats are it's like a 30% movement in the direction of cards. I think the split is something crazy now. It's like 80% cards, 20% cash.
Is that because of because what's gone on this year? Because we were going in that direction anyway.
We were, at the beginning of this year, I think it was like 60-40, or very close to that.
And now we're looking at 80-20.
Something like that, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. So you were solving the problem. Obviously, you were improving merchants' margin, removing the middleman. Is this the vision you were selling investors at this point?
So yeah, so we put a prototype together that was very it's very hacky. So what we did was we had a device that could read cards.
Yeah.
And that card could essentially I used a Barclays card, and we basically said that, you know, we're going to create these online accounts and it connects to all of your cards, and those cards connect to all of your banks, and that payment will be instantaneous. So what we did was, none of this technology was available at the time, so I had to fake it.
That's a big claim. That's a big shooting for the stars.
Well, that was what was coming.
Yeah.
Right? So there's legislation that's come through that was basically what we're doing right now.
Right.
But that wasn't available at that point, and so we had to kind of hack it together. So what we did was we kind of it's a technical screen scraping. You can basically log into a bank in a server. So say, you know, you've got a NatWest account, and you log in as in a server somewhere, and you just pretend to be a user, an actual customer using it, and then all you have to do is tie all that information together. So I put in my NatWest card, also my Barclays card into the machine, and the machine had a touch screen display. There's actually videos of this online, of the presentation that we put together about this.
Really?
And when you put the card in, it would load from the server the banks that were attached to this card. So I flick through and I select NatWest, for instance, right? And then you could choose how much you want to pay. You choose 10p, and then you put in your PIN number for the card, and then what that would do is the server would go to the account that was logged into NatWest, and it would do a faster payments to the recipient bank. And then I'd go on to that recipient bank and I'd be like, look, it's already done. The transaction is complete. Yeah. There was, barely any fees, and
that's incredible.
It was done instantaneously, but it looked really swish.
Yeah.
And that was basically that's what's coming. That's how it's going to work in the future. And I guess that was what we used to raise the majority of the funds. But it was completely hacked together, and it was no way that would work in the real world at that moment in time anyway.
So you said that you spoke to a lot of investors. Obviously, not everyone's going to be bought into your vision. They're not going to believe you. What's this guy talking about? He's 20-something. He's living in dreamland. Tell us about your setbacks and what you learned from them.
The most annoying, setbacks. The age thing didn't actually. Well, no one told me specifically that age was a problem, but I'm sure it did. I obviously had a lot of no's. Was very persistent in getting what I wanted. I'm sure it did play a factor, but no one told me that was the case. A lot of the setbacks were I was trying to do the impossible, and there was a lot of money on the other side, and they would do it. There's loads of random stuff, but the biggest setback was money at that point. I had all this stuff I wanted to build and do, and I needed a team to do all that stuff, loads of expertise, and getting funding for that was the biggest thing.
Who was helping you at this point on the product development?
There was a couple of people that I paid, a bunch of contractors. I did a lot of the work myself in terms of the infrastructure and how it should all be put together. The whole thing I just explained about the cards connected to the banks, etc. That was, I literally laid out the architecture of how that would work. Yeah. Obviously, my computer science background helped a lot with all that kind of stuff.
Definitely.
And I'm still super involved to this day to the technology infrastructure that we have. I can't say that there's no way I can code any of it. The stuff that these guys do now is unbelievable. Yeah. But fundamentals are still there. They're always going to be there in terms of how logic and databases and yada yada, all of that ties together.
Certainly. Okay, brilliant. Well, I mean, the fact you've got this sort of technical background, though, is going to help you massively in terms of developing the product in the future, isn't it? But I mean, what milestones stand out for you on this journey then, Sina? And you obviously had the investment from the accountant. I'm assuming that got the snowball rolling, as you said. So had that investment you brought other investors in at after that point. What sort of key moments did you bring? Was there one person who came in who sort of put you on the right path? Was there any lessons you learned from that point? From sort of from that journey of trying to attract investors, was there any key moments which stick in your mind as something which was a pivotal moment for Yoello?
Yeah, so the first investor that came in, they put in probably 10% of the overall round, and
This wasn't the accountant, by the way.
This was the accountant.
Yeah. Sorry, okay.
And so I still had a long way to go to close the round and then get all the funding that I needed.
So you were looking for a big amount of money a year to hire a team, essentially. Yeah,
a team to can just build all the stuff that we needed.
Yeah, of course.
And at this point, my mum still had no idea what was going on. And the tough part about investing, which I found other ways around now, but at that point, the way it worked was you just kind of have to sell the dream to everyone and juggle them all at the same time. They all had to, what I thought at the time, everyone had to sign the dotted line at the same time, the same agreement, and then everyone sends the money on the same day, which is quite difficult because, if you've got a number of investors, I think we had 8 in that round, you have to juggle 8 people to make sure they're continually interested and they're happy to do it on the same day because, go through this whole dance with them and show them how it all works and get them super invested into the project, and then you kind of have to say, okay, you wait there whilst I get the rest of the money, and so we can all sign and close the deal on the same day. So that was quite a difficult challenge, and I've found better ways of doing it now.
Yeah.
And I guess when that day happened, it was a great milestone in my journey personally because I feel like I achieved something specifically that was like tangible, seeing the money in the account.
I can't believe you did all this yourself. You were juggling product development, the technical element, keeping investors, 8 of them happy, getting all the money in at the same time. Surely somebody was helping you on this at the time.
Yeah, there was a lot of people helping me, giving me advice, but in terms of capacity, if I could put a percentage on how much I did versus how much everyone else did, it was probably 95% me. There was no one else. Like it was just me at that point. I was the only full-time person. So
what kind of hours were you working?
All of them.
Were you bothering to go to sleep? Just now and again.
Quite lucky from a sleep perspective. I think I'm content. My body works fine on like 5 hours sleep. So I don't know if I forced it that way or if that was always the case. But I didn't sleep much, especially at that point. I was just really determined, and just worked my ass off from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. It's all I could think about, and that's the kind of determination you really need.
Absolutely.
If you want something that bad, you'll get it.
Yeah,
and
of course.
And I really wanted it. So
where does this drive come from? We talked about your entrepreneurialism and where that comes from, and you've explained that. But where does the sort of barefaced grit come from to just work 23 hours a day or whatever it is and just get shit done? Where does that come from in you?
That's a tough question. I don't know. I think.
But it's a valid question though, because not many people are as committed as you are, Sina. So why are you more committed than 99% of people out there at your age? Because when I was your age, okay, the only thing I was committed to, I was committed to other things, okay? Out partying, most people in their 20s are, that's just the way it is, okay? But, you're different, clearly. Why is that?
It was a tough balance. I was doing all that kind of stuff as well. But then that means I literally had no sleep.
Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I just wanted it. And I don't think there's a root cause. I think everyone is different. Maybe it's the circumstances behind all the different events in my life that made me, want this that much. But yeah, I've got a terrible answer to this question.
No, at all. I think it's a great answer. You did what you needed to do, and you the success you got. Now, actually, that leads me on to the next question, because you probably, I'm going to guess here, you probably had a tough time of it in the lead up to 2020 to this year, because even though you clearly had a good idea and it solved a problem and you had interest from investors, you still hadn't had that moment where you'd kind of hit that inflection point. Is that fair to say?
We hadn't even launched. So we'd raised money at this point. The next milestone was getting my first employee, which was Justin. Justin came on board as our director of operations. He came from a bank. First thing I had to do was give him a massive brain dump. This is what we need to do in the next 5 years, and it's a lot to take in. I must have sounded like a lunatic, just throwing all these things out there. But we put milestones in place. He's very organised, so
That's testament, though, to him, because he obviously had a very stable career at that point, and joining you was a risk, wasn't it? At that point,
massive risk. Yeah. So he was at the Hodge Bank in a very senior position. I think he was group director of something, and he was there for 20 years or so. So he was very, very stable.
Yeah.
But the way he looked at it was he wanted to do something really cool. He was introduced to me, and he loved the project. He really wanted to just get stuck in and get involved with the startup. I think he was bored of the corporate world. So
yeah, absolutely. So talk us through. This is a good segue into the technology challenges you faced. Then, what kind of main technology challenges stick out for you, sort of pre-Justin, and then and from that point onwards?
Yeah, so I think in terms of our infrastructure, it's done very well. I think we've hired some just super geniuses, and they've set everything up perfectly from an infrastructure perspective. We use all the latest gear that's available, which is nice. In terms of external things, all the banking stuff that we're doing at the moment it's a bit of a mess right now. But I don't expect it to be any other way. If you look at how everything's operated for the last 20 years with cards, we're trying to shift that over to this new model in a very short space of time, only a couple of years. So you can't expect it to be perfect. It's all happening in iterations. So there's milestones that the banks have got to go through. They're enforced on them by the regulators. They've had some delays on those, which wasn't very good for us. As well as that, it's down almost every day. I get an email every day, a few of them, that says this bank is down for the services that we're building on right now. So it's all very much still in beta, and there's still a long way to go. But next year is when it will kick off.
Right. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. So I'm just mindful because we haven't really, and this is my fault, we should, I'm just thinking for listeners who are unclear, we've talked about the problem you solved and stuff like that, but can you just give us a walkthrough or talk through in this instance of how your product works? I'm a customer. I walk into a restaurant, one of your restaurants. You know what I mean? Talk us through how the product works, not from a technical level, from a usability level.
Yeah. So the product, so the fundamentals of it is obviously the payment side, but it only really works in the online world. The demo I made earlier, the prototype, etc. That was all for show. There's no cards involved, no physical cards involved in what we're building. So when you look at the schemes, they have the connections. They have the network which connects the banks to the customers to the merchants, and we have to basically replicate that. So we've connected to the banks, we've connected to the merchants via providing them with back of house software, some of the hardware that we provide. And then we connect to the customers via their own phones, which is essentially, replacing their cards. And it's not just about payment initiation. You can't just move money. It has to be to get people to move away from what's there right now, which is quite convenient as it is. It's much more convenient than cash, using cards and contactless, etc.
Yeah.
But you have to provide them something even better for them to move over into the next stage of it. So we built this whole ecosystem around that, which is centered around like order and pay technology. So being able to view the menu through your phone, loyalty and rewards, and all the cool splitting bills and all this functionality that underpins just a digital world for hospitality and leisure. And when COVID came, it was just perfect because it was all the stuff that we had been building, which amounted to basically a customer arriving to a location. There's QR codes on the tables. You just scan the QR code or you tap your phone to it, and then it immediately opens up the merchant's platform that we've white labeled to them. Yeah. There's no apps to be downloaded, so the customer's just in straight away.
And that's the key part for me. That's what makes it great, because everyone's the amount of memory on your phone is quite is finite, and I don't want to be downloading another bloody app. So the fact that you have solved that problem when I go into a restaurant, I think is genius.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially as we're now going further into this digital world. Yeah, you can't have everything be apps. It'd be an absolute.
What other use cases are possible for Yoello outside of hospitality? Have you thought about that? Have you had conversations about that?
We've got a lot of use cases. Maybe that's one for a podcast a year from now or something.
Can you give us a hint? Is there any sort of potential plans to branch into any specific sectors right now?
There's a lot of different verticals that all of this technology work for. I mean, payments as a whole is the fundamental product that we're building on.
Yeah.
And then the ecosystem that we're building around it is at the moment tailored towards hospitality and leisure, but there's plenty of other things that we're currently working on right now.
Definitely. What does the future look like for Yoello then, aside from that? What's on the immediate term radar? Let's talk about 2021. What do you want to achieve next year?
So we're shifting our focus more towards just the global market. We've done pretty well in the UK so far, and we're hoping to get the product out there through a number of different channels.
So you're only in the UK right now, then, yeah?
We've got deals outside of the UK. We've got partners that want to work with us out there. We've got channel partners and resellers, etc.
Yeah.
But in terms of operating businesses, so in the UK, I think that's about to change as of a few weeks from now. We're going into Australia, America, New Zealand, and then I think the first territory in Europe outside of the UK will be Spain for us.
Thank you for tuning in. I just want to take this opportunity to thank some of our friends. Firstly, all-round tech PR superstars Nelson Bostock. Whether you're an established technology brand or a fast-growing fintech, you need the right team behind you, a team that understands your brand, your purpose, your goals, and can really help you define your narrative and tell your story, the story that matters. These guys tick all of those boxes and more. You can find them at nelsonbostock.com. That's Nelson Bostock with a CK on the end, .com. Highly recommended. I also want to thank Tramshed Tech. We've come down here and they've kindly allowed us to use their world-class recording studio facility down here. But they do office space, they do events. I can't recommend them enough. That's Tramshed Tech. And also a big shout out to Be Digital, who make all this possible. Be Digital enable organizations to become lean, agile, and to attract the right talent. That's bedigitaluk.com. So let's go on to the sort of the operational element of your business. Okay, you've obviously jumped from you in your bedroom to a 45-man operation, pretty much, give or take, at the moment. Obviously, you've moved into amazing new offices. Thank you for showing me around the other week. Really, really impressive. Obviously, we met didn't meet, actually. I met you before that, which you've just established. But obviously, you were in the Eagle Labs before that. You're in lovely new offices now. Talk us through the challenges of acquiring the team that you need to push this forward.
Yeah, it's quite difficult hiring as a startup because, firstly, well, if you look at what everyone, so people are quite content mostly with where they are. Moving jobs is it's a lot of effort for someone to do. So they need to be upgrading basically, whether it's financially or whether it's what they're doing. Or the opportunity that they see, and a startup is inherently a risk. There's a risk associated to that, so it's gotten a lot easier over the last year to hire businesses. At the beginning of the year, we almost had to sell the dream and just say, "Hey, come and join us. This is we're going to make this thing big together."
Of course.
And now we've had a lot more recognition. A lot of people that have joined us have used our products, so they know who we are. We've won awards, so we've made a bit more of an impact.
Yeah.
So people aren't, the perceived risk is significantly lower of joining a startup from I assume, the stable position that they might be in. And then, the developers is, our tech team is the biggest team in the company, and they're the hardest to hire because they're in the most demand.
Certainly.
So you just. It's difficult finding the right people, the right skill sets, because there's so many different things that you could be knowledgeable in from an engineering perspective, but then actually finding people that have the right mentality, the right culture, it's shown to be a challenge. We made some mistakes here and there, But overall, we've got a fantastic team. The culture in the company is amazing. We're like a family. But we all know what's at stake. So everyone's crunching away and hustling to get this off the ground.
Absolutely. Well, that's amazing. So let's talk about Cardiff then, because you've obviously hired your team predominantly in Cardiff. I know you may be looking at other options in the future. Where are you at with that in terms of maybe Office 2 or virtual Office 2 or anything like that? Do you have any plans to open up a second office in another location, or do you see your future going more towards remote working and you don't really care where you're based? What's your thoughts on that?
It's too early to say at this point what we want to do. We know that we're going to need another office when we go international. So we're going to set up somewhere in Europe, ideally probably central. There's been discussions of like Spain or the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's the challenge for the next few months to figure out. In terms of going remote, we did. I think every company did for the first few months of lockdown. It's quite a challenge for us because a startup, if you look at a big company, say you're over 100 staff, you're established business at that point, everyone knows what they're doing, there's policies and procedures, and there's an established way of doing things. And going remote is not that big of a challenge because you can communicate, you've got all that software to do it, you can project manage, and everyone knows what they're doing. And you're not going to be growing significantly in that time unless you've got a particular product that's in demand due to the pandemic. So as a big business, going remote is actually quite simple, and it probably wouldn't impact them that much because everything's already organized. Whereas what we found is that we had to scale really quickly. We heptupled our team from the start of the year, and to do that, it just required a lot of creativity, a lot of people coming up with new policies and ways of doing things, and it's quite hard to do that remote and hire people that you've never met before just over interviews. And I think we were quite lucky with the people that we did hire, and it went well so far. And I think you can never replace the creativity and the convenience of being in an office for conjuring up new ideas and strategies. Yeah. It's much more difficult to do that remotely.
Yeah,
because the communication is just so limited.
I remember when we first moved into the Eagle Labs, obviously we were in there temporarily, and I got talking to one of your employees, and she said that she had joined during the lockdown, and as had everybody else who was there on that day. And she said, yeah, today's the first time I've met everybody else in the company because really? She'd got hired in lockdown, so she only met you.
Yeah.
You've done everything. So let's cover that very quickly. Onboarding remotely. What do you think about that? Was it tough? You said something you had some good fortune, but how did you find it at the time?
Yeah, we had fortune in specific teams. Some teams we didn't do as well as others, because onboarding there's loads of different tasks you got to do to actually tick it off completely. It's the company culture. You got to understand what the vision is and everything's about. Got to meet everyone else. So it's quite a difficult thing to do completely remotely, especially when you're doing it so quickly and you've got 100 other things to do as well. So it was all a bit rush. Could have definitely been done better, but overall it was a success for us, and there was no other way, so we had to make it work.
Your hand was forced, wasn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you think is what sort of attributes do you look for when you're hiring staff generally? Are there any core values in Yoello? Any sort of type of attributes that you look for to hire good people?
So they obviously have to have a lot of domain experience. They have to be very skilled at what they do, especially if they're in engineering. And then from a culture perspective, I'm very clear with what they're getting into. This isn't a 9 to 5. This isn't your average job. We're here for a very specific purpose.
Yeah.
And we've got a goal that we have to hit under any circumstances. So it's a roller coaster. I explain it very, very clearly that there's going to be ups and downs, and the longer you stay on, it does go up. So I make it clear that there are going to be tears, but it is definitely worth it from just the enjoyment of working in a startup. It's very different to working in the corporate world.
Yeah, definitely.
You get to breathe eat, sleep the company, and all the things that you make, they materialize in front of you, and you're almost solely responsible for those. So the credit that you get is completely different, and so the cultural piece is very important for us.
Yeah,
and we try to hire people that really want to be aligned with the company's goals of making a successful startup, and they have the grit and the perseverance to work and do what's required.
So let's talk about tech a bit more broadly then, okay, outside of Yoello. What are you most excited about right now? Obviously, you're a techie at heart. You got into crypto early. Obviously, I'm sure you keep abreast of what's going on in the world right now. In terms of AI, we talked about quantum computing. Not that I want to lead you, but what are you excited about in the tech world right now and the innovation, in terms of innovation?
So, there's so much going on in technology, but I'm kind of more interested in the sciencey part of it, biology and physics and whatnot. I think if circumstances were different, I was going to study medicine at university. It was the two choices that two things I was going between, and really interested in genetics. But it's the makeup of everything, in terms of just biological life, and there's DNA is such an intricate thing that we just do not understand at this point.
Have you ever done 23andMe or any of those sort of things?
No, I haven't done any of that, but they're going to be key players.
If anyone's listening who's buying Sina a Christmas present, he wants 23andMe, okay?
But yeah, even those guys will be key players in all of it, because they're the ones that collate all the data and match things together. Because whilst we're getting better at reading and almost writing, the innovations a few years ago like CRISPR have allowed us to very quickly write DNA and edit it. But then we have no idea what any of it means. That's the problem. It's such a long string of just the 4 characters.
Yeah,
we have no idea what the combinations of those characters relate to in terms of the production of matter and life. And it's computers that are going to figure that out through a long series of trial and error and just comparison. And it's AI and machine learning. They're going to be pivotal. But once we figure all of that out, then it's going to be the next revolution, in my opinion. You can just create whatever. Imagine you can have Sims, or there's a couple of games where you can just create life forms.
Yeah,
it's gonna change all of science. It's gonna change agriculture. It's gonna change the weather. It's gonna be a lot of stuff that we can do once we figure out how to manipulate genetics. There's a huge amount of ethics behind it. People almost always talk about the very rich being able to manipulate it first and use it for design of babies and whatever they want, right? Just living forever potentially.
Yeah.
And that will be the case. It's always the case for any new technology. It will be the wealthy get it first. But I think in terms of the global community, it will be used for good. People will use it for bad, of course. But overall, I think the benefits heavily outweigh the negatives.
Absolutely. Let's talk about education, okay? You obviously went pretty far, okay? You went all the way to the final year of university, and then I'll go and set a company up. But what is your sort of just your thoughts, your opinion on how well the education system, okay, prepares people for a modern career, not just in technology in general, okay? How well does the education system prepare you to work in companies like Yoello?
In terms of what I did, it didn't prepare me at all. It's surprising actually, because people just kind of get thrown out there. I didn't get taught anyway about taxes and mortgages and the very basics, things that you would consider, you'd think that you would be taught about. Definitely.
That's crazy though, isn't it? How they don't give any financial education at all.
They just throw you into it.
But we learn calculus and things we'll never need in our lives.
Yeah, exactly. But the whole education system, in my opinion, does need a reform. When you consider where we were 20 years ago and where we are now, it's an entirely different world. And the education system right now is all about memory.
Yes.
You need to just retain information, and that's the metric of success. There's very little creativity that goes into it across the majority of subjects. And now that you've got almost all the information we know in your pocket at all times, you don't need the retention anymore. It needs to be shifted towards creativity.
Absolutely.
But that's obviously a massive feat in terms of how can you judge creativity is quite difficult, just in an examination process especially. So, I'm not, although it does need some kind of reform to make it better, and just the stuff that's just taught to people needs to change. I have no advice on how to improve it.
No, it's a really complex and difficult one. Did you ever listen to the TED talk with Sir Ken Robinson? Because have you ever listened? Because
No.
he died recently. There's a guy called Sir Ken Robinson, and he did a famous TED talk. It's one of the most viewed TED talks ever on YouTube. And he talked about this exact subject, how the education system was essentially set up to prepare people to work in factories in the 1800s, and it's largely unchanged since then. Right. So it's when you get to a certain point in education, you essentially achieve a certain level of compliance. Okay? Yeah. It's compliance and memory as opposed to creative and solving problems and things, because you know what I mean. So you can get a GCSE in certain subjects just by memorizing things, like you pointed out, not by actually learning them and understanding them. So it's crazy, isn't it? But
I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so let's talk about your personal development. One thing that I think strikes me about you is that you've taken ownership of your own development, which is a trait that all entrepreneurs seem to have. What stories, people, books, anecdotes, whatever, what's inspired you on this journey, to help you on this journey that you've been on over the last couple of years?
There's been a lot of books that I've read, books that were mainly tailored around entrepreneurialism, leadership. I went from a position of almost no experience at all to having to run a company. I was my first employer was myself, so I didn't have any experience in that world at all. I was never into a corporate environment either, so I could only learn from others that I surrounded myself with, and the information that I found on the internet or in books. So there's a lot of different things that I read. I'm reading Blitzkrieg right now, not Blitzkrieg. What am I talking about? Blitzscaling.
Blitzscaling.
Blitzscaling. Yeah, it's by Reid Hoffman.
I know Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn founder.
Yeah. So he put a book together that basically talks about massive, just achieving scale. Once you've got something.
He's awesome. I've listened to a lot of his content. Yeah. He's one of the PayPal mafia, isn't he?
He is in the
Elon Musk and all that. Yeah. A lot. So, what does that book cover for you then that's helped you?
I've only just started, but I really like it so far. It was recommended to me by a few people, a few friends as well. And the premise of it is how to grow fast and just scale internationally by almost just spending money. I think you have to scale in a very inefficient way and then fix it later on, because there's no way you can be efficient and fast.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's just talking about different cases, different companies that have done it and examples, and just loads of advice about how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about intellectual property very quickly. What you just mentioned there is a good counter-argument to protecting things through patents and stuff like that, just capturing market share and stuff like that. Have you protected anything that you've got right now, or have you considered it, and how did that play out?
We've got trademarks. And I believe we got some patents in the pipes. Patents are a bit different here than they are in say America. You can patent business processes. You can't patent specific things. So technology in particular is quite difficult to actually patent. But,
yeah. So you haven't protected anything. You just sort of you just sort of go in for market share and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about a business process, which is that's all you can patent. You can't patent, say, our payment platform or anything like that. You have to patent something that leads up to a customer doing a very specific thing, and then that leading to this, and then that's the result. And almost in all cases, you can always get around it. Change a tiny little thing, and suddenly it's completely outside of that patent.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'd rather put my time and money elsewhere.
No, absolutely, because patent attorneys cost a bloody fortune, don't they? So it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about I just want you to give some advice, really. Okay, an incredible journey you've been on. Well deserved. You've clearly worked really hard for it, and I really do congratulate you for the success you're having right now. Okay, but what I want to get from you right now is, there's going to be people listening to this, young entrepreneurs, youngsters who want to become successful. Okay. They're going to look up to people like you. You're sort of a role model for potentially for a entrepreneur.
Flatter
Okay.
me.
But you've got to take that responsibility, you know, and you got to take that seriously now. You know, you've obviously done very well, and you may get asked for advice sometime. Okay, I know you've benefited from mentors yourself. What advice would you give to a young entrepreneur, you know, maybe from a technical background who dreams of building some software, building a product that they can take to market, get investment and scale it? Just someone who's on that early sort of stage, or maybe, you know, it doesn't have to be a youngster, it could be someone a bit older who's beginning this journey. But what advice would you give to someone who's starting this journey?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is you have to be completely dedicated to this. You can't half want it. You can't just, you know, like the idea of it. Everyone's got dreams. Everyone wants to do amazing things. Everyone wants fame and fortune. But it's only the ones that really dedicate their time and life and energy towards it. That's almost a fundamental requirement. So you have to do that. The other thing is, don't be afraid to ask for advice. No one knows everything. And there's so many people that can help you if you just ask for it. So surround yourself with people that are better than you. You can be good at a lot of things and be like the jack of all trades. You should find people that are very good at very specific things and get them to teach you. So surround yourself with advisors and mentors. And you know, if you're going for a startup, I would actually incentivize them, give them shares to you know, get them really on board with the project and get them dedicated towards helping you. And then, yeah, I think just the main thing is being organized as well. You have to be very structured with what you want to do and what you want to achieve. You kind of have to break it down almost. So say you have a goal. You want to do this by you know, a year's time. It seems like an impossible challenge to do because there's so many things have to happen for you to achieve that goal. If you just write that goal down in a document as, you know, the headline, and then you kind of break it down into subtasks, and those subtasks, you know, is the subset of that goal is just those things that need to get done, and you put some dates on those, and then you break those down,
Right, yeah.
and suddenly they don't actually look that big.
Of course.
If you just go along ticking those things day by day, right, you'll end up a year's time and you've finished it. You've got to that final project. So sometimes people are kind of scared by what they want to do or what they want to achieve because they look at it and they're like, "Ooh, I can't do it." But if you break it down into all the smallest components that it could possibly be, then it's doable over a course of time. And I think that's important for probably more the... so I was quite lucky in terms of the age that I started this. I had no commitments anywhere else. If this didn't work out, nothing gets impacted really. Whereas I've had friends that, you know, 35, 40, just starting their entrepreneurial career, and they have so much at stake. They've got families, they've got mortgages.
Of course, yeah.
They can't, you know, it takes a lot to actually jump straight in and give that 100% dedication that I mentioned earlier. They have to almost break it down and do it all bit by bit.
Yeah.
But if you can jump and give everything, I would definitely suggest that.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Just let me finish on this one. Are there any tools or any specific techniques that you use to stay organized, to execute on your goals? Any sort of things that you use, like, you know, Evernote or Microsoft To Do or anything like that? You know, is there anything that's helped you?
I use Asana.
What's this? What's that?
Asana is ASANA.
Okay.
It's like an online project management tool.
All right.
Very, very big company, actually. I've only found out the other day, I think they're worth like 10, 15 billion or something like that.
Is it like Monday.com
It's
or
like
one of those
Monday.
type of things, yeah?
Yeah, it's like Monday, different kind of structure though. It's like a very glorified Kanban board.
Right.
But it's quite
okay.
intricate.
Yeah,
a whole company's using it for team and project management. But it's very intricate in terms of the functionality that it has. It just tracks all of what I need to do and all of what the company needs to do as well. So I personally organise myself through it.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Well, Sina, I think that brings us to a conclusion. I really appreciate you being so candid. I think you've had an incredible journey, and I wish you all the best for future endeavours. I got a feeling we may do this again one day if you're up for it. I think there's lots for you to potentially tell. It just feel like the book is still very much open on this, and the future looks very bright for Yoello, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter of your journey.
Thank you, Gareth. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we've got a long way to go. So hopefully, if it continues going well, then we can have an update in the near future.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sina. Thanks for coming on the Tech Leaders podcast.